Hello, this is Catherine Morgan-Nance here to discuss with you how to put together a quick planning budget and use the data that we create for the planning budget to put together a flexible budget. Here are the facts. Lynn's Landscaping uses the number of lawns mowed as its measure of activity. And during February, the company budgeted for 500 lawns mowed using a set of formulas which are shown on the screen under the columns variable and fixed. Lynn also forecast revenues and expenses assuming 6 or 7 or 800 lawns are mowed. Let's start with how Lynn creates the planning budget at a assumed level of activity of 500 lawns. Lynn has estimated his revenue to be $75 per lawn times 500 lawns mowed. So let's see how that formula works itself out here. I'll bring the calculator over for you. 500 lawns times $75 a lawn is $37,500. Lynn has also budgeted his expenses and stated them in terms of variable expenses and fixed expenses. And as you remember from our discussions on cost behavior, variable expenses vary in total based on activity. So here we've got $30 per lawn for wages and salary times 500 lawns, or for gasoline and supplies, $9 per lawn times 500 lawns would be the budget. Now, the curious thing about wages and salaries is that we also have a fixed element to wages and salaries. And you recall how fixed costs should behave. They should be constant in total. So for wages and salaries, we have a variable and a fixed element. And we call this, of course, a mixed cost. So let's put together the planning budget for wages and salaries. And we can do that by doing a calculation on our calculator if we chose to. We could multiply 500 lawns times $30 variable cost for $15,000 plus add $5,000 in fixed cost for $20,000, or we could do what all good Excel experts do and copy a formula into that cell to calculate the expenses to be expected at 500 lawns mowed. Now we can do the same thing for gasoline and supplies, which is also a variable expense at $9 a lawn times 500 lawns. I think we'll find that to be $4,500. 9 times 500 is in fact $4,500. So we can just copy our formula down and have that amount calculated for us. And in fact, we can do that with equipment maintenance as well. $1,500. Now, again, emphasizing that fixed expenses are expected to be fixed no matter what the level of activity within the relevant range. We could create formulas where we would just say fixed expenses are going to be equal to $1,000 or $2,000 or $2,500 for equipment depreciation or $1,000 for insurance no matter what. And so we'll build that out. We can see that our total expenses now are $32,500, our total budgeted expenses at a level of activity of 500 lawns mowed. Our net operating income, of course, is going to be revenues minus expenses for a budget of $5,000 at a level of activity of 500 lawns. Using the same strategy, let's go ahead and check what revenues would be at a level of activity of 600 lawns. So 600 times $75 per lawn is $45,000 in revenue. And we could go ahead and calculate all those numbers manually, or we could just simply take our Excel spreadsheet formulas and copy them into the next column. And at a level of activity of 600 lawns mowed, would expect to earn net income of $8,300, in part because of the behavior of those fixed costs. They're fixed in total and they don't increase with activity. Of course, the variable costs do increase with the level of activity. So using the same philosophy for 700 lawns mowed, would expect to earn $11,600 net income, and at 800 lawns mowed, he would expect to earn $14,900 in net income. That's it for the moment. Why don't we come back in the next video and talk about some requirements and how one might use the data from the planning budget to create a flexible budget. See you soon.